authentic text that comes from Buddha himself and then written by the disciples who has insight, who has unbroken lineage or not. We need to check on them and how it has been practiced. It is going in line with the Buddha's text or not? This needs to be checked very carefully. This needs to be applied. This needs to be adhered to, because you know what? I'm giving some small teachings. Whatever I say, whatever I teach, something that has been, okay, let me put it this way. Nowadays you can see a whole lot of many different teachings, not necessarily Tibetan teachings, but many kind of teachings that claim to have some sort of instant solutions to any kind of problems, and some breathing techniques, and some mental imaginations, and accessing some sort of special kind of the divine part of our our beings, ourselves, and a whole lot of things are there. So all of these teachings are great, and each of them has great amount of wisdom you can get, pocket of wisdoms. But special Buddhism is what it's trying to do is they never take anything randomly, easily. They do practice, but they don't prioritize them. It's just part of other practice. But in order for these teachings, any kind of teachings, to be authentic, we need to trace back where it comes from. Who has gone through that path, and where did they get eventually? So that's why great master like Buddha and his disciples reached there. We need to learn from someone who actually gone there and taught us. Not some sort of nice feelings, to make you feel good. These are at some point, these are not necessary we cannot guarantee them to be Dharma. We cannot take them, this wouldn't necessarily be Dharma, because it could be somehow just to live your life. It could be just being practiced just to have some sense of just to alleviate some sort of stress and the pain, or kind of pain and the sufferings that you may have been going through temporarily, in order to alleviate, in order to release you from that kind of darkness, maybe the temporal darkness of this life. You focused all your energy and practice on that. So this is not necessarily bad. Dharma also teaches. Dharma teaches that kind of things as well. Dharma teaches how to overcome suffering this life and next life and life forever. So it doesn't necessarily a bad. It is Dharma, but it's not the real authentic Dharma. That's why these are called worldly Dharma. It's part of worldly Dharma. So in order it to become a real Dharma, you have to start thinking beyond this life. Then there is three scopes, three person, small person, three person with their respective capacity. Person with small capacity, person with a medium capacity, person with a higher capacity. So that will comes on the basis of focusing your practice starting from next life, not necessarily, not focus in this life. So that's why like the Dharma practice isn't we never practice anything is easily, lightly, but it needs to be studied. It needs to come from perfect teachers that has unbroken lineages, and also tracing back all the way to the master who actually went there and came back and taught us. So that's why precious human life is also one of the practice that has its own roots coming from tracing. You can tracing back all the way to Buddha. So that's why there's a lot of okay. So it could be traced back to Buddha, and it's a very authentic teachings. Because many other great philosophical texts doesn't necessarily talk about this. They they jump to the very complicated philosophical point, start explaining these philosophical points. Not many of those philosophical texts explaining precious human life meditations. Okay, so anyway, so precious human life meditation is actually quite important in terms of generating, in terms of developing authentic dharma into you. In order for your practice become authentic, precious human life meditation is very important. Now, the funny thing is, when you look at this, precious human life, it doesn't seem to be like something that we need to meditate on because we are good at it. We all know that my life is precious. Everyone thinks that I'm precious. And we have the tendency to see myself as precious. That's why we have this ego and selfish. And we see ourselves such a precious that none other things could have compared my preciousness. That's why, the ego and the selfish wins over any kind of achievement in this world that cannot compare the preciousness of the self. You can actually sacrifice anything in order to save that me, self. So that's how it is precious. So it is already precious, and it's precious to the point that nothing can compare. Even even the whole world has been offered to you, and you have to give up your life. You probably choose to live and give up whole universe. I don't care the universe. I need to live. I need my life get going. That's what you will be thinking. So anyway, then why then we are still need to practice that precious human life and meditations on the precious human life? So the thing is, we know that we are precious, but we are still making it more precious. You know why we meditate on compassion? Because we need to develop compassion. Meditation is at some point described as training your mind to get to the point where you want to be. That means training. That it's training at the same time. It's okay. It could be explained. It could be described as the familiarizations. The more you familiarize yourself to any kind of ideas, it becomes more part of yourself. Once that ideas, compassion, emptiness, impermanence, here precious human life, then it's become that ideas, meditations will blend that ideas with your mainstream mind, and it will start joining to the mainstream mind, and the mental continuum will carry on it for carry on with the mental continuum, and gradually, eventually, it will become part of your nature. So you will naturally see the human precious life. Naturally, you can naturally develop the compassion. So that some of those philosophical texts, the difference between the matters and the mind in terms of training is that in terms of training, the difference is that matter you train, you need to reiterate, you need to reassert the efforts when it comes to doing the things actually. And even let's say, for example, they give the example of the acrobats or another, those exercises, yogas, posture, all these things. These are something that you practice, you train hard, you train, and eventually you will be able to do it, right? You will be able to do it with not much efforts. You're very much, you can do it very much better than someone else who did not receive any kind of trainings. But every time you do that, you need to put a whole lot of effort, and every time you need rehearsal. Otherwise, it will be gone. So the matter is, no matter how you train, no matter how you kind of put them together to be able to do things, it also may need effort. It also needs something to ignite it. But when it comes to the mind, when you train hard, and when you reach at the point where it becomes more natural, then it doesn't need effort. It comes naturally. Like the language, that the English language you speak, the English language I speak. I have learned English word by word, and it doesn't come naturally. I need to practice. It's like a baby walking. It's I need to practice, then it comes naturally. So that's because the mind, when minds get used to something, then it comes naturally. It doesn't need effort. It comes naturally. So there's the possibility of compassion become part of that kind of natural, because mind has that kind of ability to get trained and become nature, become part of it. It will digest it. It will imbibe it. It will then, just become part of that, subtle nature, and then your mind become compassionate naturally. So another thing is that those kind of negative parts of the mind are somehow there, but it can never become true nature, become part of your mind itself, because negative part of the mind is like a cloud, and the mind itself is like a sky. So cloud can never become sky, So sky is always sky. Maybe there's a floating clouds are there, but it comes and goes. So it's the negative thoughts are just like that. So let's say like anger, attachment, all these minds essentially, when you look at the very nature of the mind, then you will see the energy like a TV screen. Whole lot of other things are going on. You can, on the TV screen, you can see my face. You can see people on the screen. But all of these are essentially just energy and light. All those things are piling up there and composing it. These are not human beings. These are not flowers. These are not objects, matters. These are just lights. So you will see that, right? So in the same way, when you get all those negative emotions in your mind, when you were able to look at this mind like the screen, like energy, anger, attachment, all those negatives, that's energy. The problem is you tangle, you're grasping it for real. So that's where we went wrong. Otherwise, it's just energy floating, energy just kind of stemming from some that one source, and it's floating just like that. And when you were able to see that, then it's a tremendous alleviate, a tremendous relief you from those rigid the idea of grasping them for real, grasping them to be real, something going on there. It's nothing that kind of rigid, real, and fixed, and kind of solid. So another part of mind solidify with the help of those negative thoughts. So anyway, this when you look at this anger, this just energy, the mind itself was been leveled, was been utilized in some other way. But when you undo that, the same energy is become power or attachment, you redo it, and using the same energy become a compassion. That's why we have 5 wisdoms. 5 poisons become 5 transformed into 5 wisdoms, and 5 aggregates again transformed into 5 5 Buddha body or transcendental body or wisdom body. So the possibility of these kind of transformations is because we have that nature, the mind itself. Mind itself and 5 poisoners can be transformed into 5 wisdoms, and thereby, because of that 5 wisdom, within our body is essentially our energy floating, has then transformed into Buddha nature, Buddha body. So that's why we become Buddha. So now coming back to precious human life. Now, why we, why we need to meditate on the precious human life while we already have that kind of sense of preciousness. Like I indicated earlier, we are still making it further more precious. We are making it further more precious. So, how the hell then? Why we need to make it more precious? Because that preciousness, self-preciousness, self-cherishing, while we are talking about this kind of self-cherishing, self-preciousness is some sort of a root cause of suffering at some point, why then we still need to meditate on and furthering that kind of sense of preciousness of self or body or mind, ourself? So that could be a contradiction, but in fact, we don't know how precious, we have no idea how precious our body, our mind is yet. We do see ourselves precious, but we were not able to see the real preciousness of our human, this kind of, human life. Yes, human life precious, but when you look at the preciousness that we usually clinging on to ourselves with, is I'm precious because I'm special, or whatever the attributes that you apply to yourself, and that serves as a valid point that you are precious, whatever you have. When you examine them carefully, all of the reasons were at some point they are right, they're correct, but there's something wrong in it as well. So that's why we need to again, the Dharma is all about this. Dharma is nothing new nothing additional things to the basic fundamental our very existence. It is actually kind of stressing. It is actually elaborate. It's just an elaborations of what we have. When you look at that attachment, when you find what attachment is, when you further the attachment in making it going further and further expand it, then it's become practice. So the thing is that we always tend to take a part of it and contain it with it, and we live with it. That's the problem. So that's why here same principles apply. Same principle here with the precious human life. We see precious and precious, me precious. We were not able to expand it a little bit. When we were able to expand it a little bit, then we will see the preciousness is in a different way. So yes, Lamrim text and other many Lojong text, mind training text from all the Tibetan Buddhist traditions offers you a whole lot of the way of meditation, way of doing meditations on the precious human life. But I'm not going to go through all of these points, individually, but one thing as a general understanding of the precious human life, you can we need to meditate on the precious human life in a little bit different way, not like the way that we normally think of ourselves. When we think of ourselves, we feel precious because it's me, all the pain and pleasures are experiencing here, everything is going on in here, and I have never experienced things going on in others and somewhere else. So that's why it's precious, because when it hurts like nothing else, like no one else's experience. It hurts to the, it's when anyone hurts in this world, hurting me is the worst hurt. So that's that kind of ideology, that kind of mentality, and make it very, problems are very obvious. Problems of make problems very, kind of big. And also, when you have good qualities, you will see that good qualities are such a kind of surpassing such a good quality that surpass anyone else's. So that's kind of things we will see. So then, that's what we usually see. But when you meditate on the precious human life, it's not just like that. Now we have to not only just seeing precious things, not only having those kind of good thoughts about yourself, but we need to learn where that precious human form and body and mind comes from. So that's why we should meditate on. So then, the reflection, it's meditations on those precious human life, and even the compassion and of course emptiness are not quite like a single point in meditation. It's more like a reflections. You are able to prolong that reflections on the particular things, and you sit with that kind of reflection over and over again. That's become actually a meditations, So that's the kind of meditation that we need to, particularly this Tibetan Buddhism. Buddhism actually encourage that type of meditation, because we need to train our mind. We need to train our mind in exactly the way that our destructive mind has tortured us, trained us. So the kids don't know how to, they don't have a discrimination. They don't hate people, but then they were taught, society taught, the family, friends taught how to hate others, and then gradually they start, after very, many years, maybe 10 years, 5 years, they learn how to hate people, and then they learn how to discriminate, how to look down to others. They learn it. So through lots of information, they learn it, and it's become part of them. And nowadays we can see a lot of kind of these terrible grown men and women in this world, this very evil thoughts and evil actions they always engage in. All they can do is to harm others. These kind of peoples, they were started from being kids, and then gradually the society taught them, and then later on they multiply those negativities, destructive thoughts on their own, and they become that kind of me. All right. So in the same way, we need to we need to undo that. We need to kind of unlearn that kind of things through using similar techniques, not only taking it down, not only bringing it down, but build up a new me, new version of myself. And when you keep doing that kind of digging, eventually what you get is the enlightenment. That is the perfect explanations of the enlightenment. Enlightenment is often explained as the fullest possible expansions of your mind. That's how you expand your mind. Of course, faith, technology, future, all those things are helpful. But having without having the proper knowledge, there's no way, no way. Yes, they do have a lot of story, but some sort of, kind of some sort of training. Maybe they might have some who, like attain some sort of realization all of a sudden through faith. It could happen, but there's a lot of conditions, preceding conditions. Maybe either in their previous life or in that life, they have learned. They put a lot of time, effort in order to cultivate those things, practice, practice, practice. And then eventually, at some point, when faith comes, it pushes, it's speeding up, it expedites that kind of practice. So that's how these things, faith and study, 50-50. Compassion, wisdom, 50-50. So there's a union. We always need union. There's no one single cause that can, accomplish anything. There's no such things as single cause. There is multiple causes, always dependent on many other conditions in order to produce the desirable kind of attainment kind of that you are looking for, that you are striving for. So that's why studying and learning, it's very important. Educate yourself in that way. It's not like a modern education. It's not like any other education. At the moment, every second, every moment of study itself is a practice, because it's bringing down that kind of destructive thoughts. Deluding mind has been compromised. The moment deluding mind, it's a swirling around like a, kind of huge swirling. It's like a huge circle. But once you were able to tap into, once you were able to dismantle one part of it, then it loses that tight. It loses that kind of tense. So in that way, when you spark, when you light one wisdom, that will spell those darkness, that the darkness accordingly. So that's why that another new lights comes, information, new kind of spiritual information came, that actually um, that actually clears a lot of other seen or unseen kind of doubts and confusion in mind, and that's how it brings awareness and it brings calmness in some part of your mind that you probably not notice, but it will follows you, it will come, it will eventually manifest into greater realizations. So um, that's why precious human life, meditations on precious human's life also needs to be practiced in that same manner. Reflections. It's a reflections. It's essentially the way how you. That's why reading texts like Lamrim, why human life is precious. What kind of problems, when you look at the things, look at the things, just being born into human beings, it's not a simple task. It comes after lots of hard works, or maybe lots of kind of It comes after a lots of kind of, it comes after cleaning a lot of other obstacles. It comes, in that human life. Okay, now you can think of like this. Your consciousness coming from previous life. There's life before life, life before life, life before life you had been through. You had been there. And now it's coming from their life. And now during the Bardo times, just this very previous life, during the Bardo times, intermediate times, you are at the intersections, you are at the intersection, and you never know where you're gonna go. There's 6 places you can go. Hell realms, two basically, lower realms and higher realms, right? Or happy realms or miserable realms. So in these three happy realms and three, three miserable realms. So this, when you at that intersection, you never know where you're gonna go. So you could have gone to hell realms with fire, body fried and boiled, and all this scary things in the hell, and animals and hunger goes. So everything, every bit of the moment, every single moment of the life there was a suffering. There's no relief. So you could have been born there because we have enough negative, unvirtuous energies that we stored, that we had been stored, that had been stored for many lifetimes. So you could have born, but luckily we were born in human. So you have these 6 realms, and we're not in the kind of heaven where there's a long life, where there's a you live millions of life, and other enjoy all the kind of mundane pleasures, but it's just wasting your time. There's no dharma there. So you were born in that human body. And you end up, your minds landed in this body, in some mother's womb, where that's going to become a human. And once you become human, then you understand dharma. Okay, now human life is precious because you met the dharma. Okay, in order to make sense of it, let's give an analogy, sort of like, okay, yeah, samsara. When we talk about samsara and the previous life, this life, and going to the next life, you shouldn't be, it shouldn't be looked at as a story or myth or something, because we literally came from there, and we're literally going to go there. So we are a traveler. We are temporary guest here. We're not going to stay here for long. We're gonna be here temporarily. So from all the samsaric sufferings, we have been in hell for millions of lifetimes. And then in animals, we become donkeys, we become dogs, we become when you say dogs, you may think, oh, cute. No, just most of the dogs are suffering everywhere. Some lucky dogs, some lucky donkeys, some lucky birds, some lucky insects, some lucky one of those animals is safe. But they don't know the Dharma. They have not. There's no way we could have teach Dharma. Yes, you can teach some, but not to the point that they can understand many of those subtle things. We can teach you. We can teach, each other. If I don't speak English, I speak Tibetan to you, you wouldn't understand. So we have a language that needs to be learned in, spend some quite time, and also, use lots of your kind of intellectual, kind of efforts to be able to express those ideas in the words and make sense to others. It's the system developed in not it's developed over a very long time. So that's we have that system, the community that make you understand, and I can understand English and learn from there. So that things are not there. Yes, they can what do you say? Emit you kind of imitate. You can imitate some, and but the subtle things cannot be taught to them. So we are lucky to have that language in general, and then communicate, and then understand and then practice. Okay, so why it is more precious than anything else? Like some of text says. Okay, let me give that. Let me talk about this first. So we come from that many lifetimes. We have been animals, we have been hell, and all those things, and suffering, birth, death, old age, sickness, all of these sufferings. We have been in a hell, like in fire. We have been cooked, boiled. We have been fried like millions of times. Millions and millions and millions of times. And all of a sudden, because of good karmas, because of your gurus, because of your Buddha and your master you once met, who taught you how to practice generosity, all these things, good things. They taught you because you practiced once. Because of that incidents, you were able to accumulate some good karmas and leftover good karma. Because of that leftover good karma, you were just this time you were able to from that intersection you were able to choose. You were able to you fortunately, you luckily, you luckily grab something that has become human, that has become grab something that is not grab some of those paths that lead you to the human life. So you don't know which one is good or bad, but you just the karma, just negative energy, bad energy, good energy is pushing you to go there somewhere. So this time it happens to be the good karma that push you to in that door, and it's become a human. So luckily, fortunately, we will not end up pushing in the other door where there's hell realms, animal realms, full of sufferings. All these animals, 99.9% of animals, torturing, killing, either it's from human beings or by themselves. Problem, suffering. When you look at these birds, beautiful birds, but what they do, they always, are very anxious, always very anxious, always fear of being hurt by something, someone, there's always that kind of fear, right? So same goes with all these, kind of animals. Most of those animals are in great fear, and then, and also they are always subject to some sort of any kind of sufferings. They cannot protect themselves from a whole lot of things. They don't have a house, the rain and heat rain, too much, too much of anything could get them killed. So we are just free of that kind of suffering. So animals cannot do much. So anyway, you just remember those sufferings of all the animals, the animal being eaten, being tortured, being killed, and what not we can see, the kind of animals that you are going through. And we're not there, and we're not, even the worst case is in hell. We were not there, not here, not in animals, not in the heaven where only Dharma never exists, because this is in samsara. In samsara, in this samsara, you're going up and down like that. Heaven, you don't practice Dharma, nothing, and then eventually you finish all the kind of good merits that you have accumulated over over a year, over many lifetimes, and you finish it, you broke, and you come back to you come back to these hell realms. And you have been going up and down, up and down, up and down like that. And the samsara is the going up there is as bad as going down there as well, because you are finishing all the good merit that you have accumulated, and you're just going down there. That's why you're going down. So it's cause that make you going down there. So it's almost like as bad as going down there already. Heaven is as bad as the hell as well, because the end of the heaven is going to be that kind of hell. So that's why heaven is nothing special. So that's why the practitioner doesn't see heaven as a good place to go. So this samsara coming back and forth, the suffering nature. And there's one thing that will help you to get out of this samsara. It's the dharma. So where do you get this dharma? Only in the human realms. So when you practice in human realms, particularly human beings who met with dharma, you found the light. You found the right maps to break out the samsara. So that precious human life, you have been born as a king, and you live such a kind of luxurious life, and you own all the universe, all world you once owned, all these things. You once been born as a king of heavens. You once have all the precious gems, and you enjoy the ultimate, the culminate, the kind of ultimate, the pinnacle, the enjoyment of the samsara, and then you come back to hell and animals. Many, you just going up and down like that. And that precious gems, the kingdoms, the king of the heaven, the throne of the heaven, didn't help you get outside the samsara. Now, here in human life, you get that knowledge, you get that dharma, and getting outside the suffering. So that's why being born as a human, you can do a whole lot of things. Escape happens only here, not here and not here. So that escape is more precious than getting the throne of the king of the god. So which one do you choose? Practitioner, you choose this one. If you choose that, eventually you're coming back to samsara, coming back to hell. And that's kind of the glory, is the throne of the king of the heaven, is nothing different than the hell, the kind of fiery ground of the hell. That's what practitioner sees. Because let's say when you see the poison, if you see the bad effects of the poison, taking poison is going to kill you, right? So taking poison is going to kill you. The sweet, maybe sweet poison. But once you taste the sweetness, you can see that the sweetness is way much worse than the bitterness of the medicine. So that sweetness is going to kill you. So in the same way, practitioner sees that kind of fault, that kind of defilement, that kind of problems in that heaven, this throne. So even if you possess them, it's just just nothing different than going to hell. It's just another way of going to hell. So that's why when you get here, because you're wasting a lot of time there, you waste all things and they're going down. So here you experience suffering, you experience pleasure, And you know what suffering looks like, you know what happiness and pleasure looks like, and you have the knowledge of the Dharma because you have time. Actually, you consciously you have time. They don't have time because too much pleasure is going on. They don't have time because too much pain is going on. You experience both and you have time. Particularly this time, you have a whole lot of time to practice Dharma. So that's why, in order to realize that preciousness, bringing all bringing all this kind of the news, bringing all these informations to get this awareness, because that awareness open up to some different level of realizations that will allows you to practice Dhamma, because your preciousness is not just you and enjoying it or experiencing suffering or pain or pleasure, but it's more than that, eradicating the pleasure, eradicating the sufferings of millions of life ahead, millions of life that you are going to take. Because you need to work on that. In order to work on that, this is the best place. So this is more precious than the gems that you get. The kind of the more precious than the kind of that the kingdom of the God, and more precious than the millions of gems that you get. Of course, more precious than the $1 billion. You don't want to waste that precious human life for nothing. So that's why meditations on precious human life, once you meditate on it, once you understand how preciousness, then you will see how fragile it is. That gives you such a kind of push to pursue Dharma. Pursue Dharma. You don't want to waste this precious. This is the only chance that I have to break through the samsara. So that's why you grab that opportunity, and because it's so precious, it's very precious, but it's very fragile. Now we don't know when the death is going to come, and we may think it's not going to come. It's eventually come, but it's not going to come tomorrow. Next year. But we never know. There's no certain. No one's lifespan is certain. Everyone needs to be going through the process of a death. Believe or not, accept or not, that's something reality that we must go through. So if once you were able to accept it's a part of your life, then the actual death is much easier. Transaction will be much easier. And the stress about, the fear about the death will be then disappeared if you seriously practice on it, because this is the way how you should be going. So anyway, so not only the precious human life, not only make you feel sort of, feel the preciousness, and yet you will able to see because that preciousness, meditation on the preciousness comes after a lot of other informations that positions your mind, that will positions your mind to be able to understand the preciousness of Dharma. And then you will be able to see how fragile, because once you cherish something so much, then you will always try to protect it from some sort of predators or any kind of harms that there's some obstacles or some kind of threats that is coming from outside. You were always curious about that. You will always pay attention on it. The same way, when you see the precious human life, is it going to be left forever or not? Then you will see the fragileness in a better way. So once you see the fragileness, then when you see the fragileness and the sense of preciousness, then your mind will be, your mind will be such a become such a settled in practice, and you don't need much, and you don't want to waste this precious life by just doing the things that are actually destroying the environment. Or in other words, you're not going to waste this precious life, such a precious life. The only chance that you break through the samsara, only chance to get outside this sufferings, it's here. I don't want to waste it just by making bread all the time. Making, I mean, just making, just getting, just by just by doing the things, just doing the things that are that only provides necessities for this life. Here, this precious life can do more. There's more to it. So we need to spend less time on the temporal things, and more times on the preparations of going through, exiting to the next life, and working on the happiness of next life and life after. So because you are going through many other lifetimes for sure. So this human life can do a lot of things for them. If you focus only on making money and building a house and buying a car, this is only for this life. But for what about your next life, other millions of life that you have to go through? All right. So essentially, what we are doing is, where our mind is also working on the future happiness. What if, for my kids growing and their future, and what I'm going to do, become old, and all this, you're worrying about the future happiness. So we have that ability to think, we're concerned about the future happiness. So just expand it, like I said earlier, expansions of getting the fuller knowledge of happiness, attachment, anger, whatever you are, focusing, because mind at some point it knows something, but it's not complete. So in order to add some more knowledge on it, expand it, then it's become a practice. It's become dharma. Because let's say happiness, every one of us looking, as long as there's a consciousness, it's instantly, it's automatically, naturally looking for happiness. But only stuck onto this temporal happiness, and it's going to pass. And on other happiness, it's going to pass, followed by, okay, this much happiness, followed by this much suffering, this much happiness, followed by another this much suffering. But you just forget about the suffering, and you just only focus on happiness like that. So it's such a pity. It's such a kind of sad kind of way of cultivating happiness. So Dharma teaches you how to expand that happiness through actual happiness. So that's why Dharma comes. Dharma doesn't comes, in order for you to take on those sufferings, but it actually twists something inside, and that is going to create happiness right now and forever. So that's where we can enjoy, we can experience happiness, But the way how we experience happiness is become attachment, anger. It's end up become attachment, anger. The real happiness, expanding it, is through compassion, emptiness, and the immediate happiness wouldn't become the cause of another suffering. What we are doing is immediate happiness become a cause of another suffering because of our ignorance, because of our misinformed mind clinging onto something. So that clinging onto something needs to be dismantled and open up a new reality and more wisdom. There's happiness, and temporary happiness, and long-term happiness. So that's the Dharma basically. So that's why we need to understand this human precious life. Meditations on the precious human life can actually lead to the practice, all the kind of can lead to the easier, simpler, and faster actualizations of the rest of the paths. Without having practice of those precious human life, things like impermanence, death, and all the things, there's no way you could have accomplished the other higher practice. There's no way whatsoever. You may be trying, you may feel those empty vacuum, kind of happiness, and feel those divine feelings inside. There's not practice. There's no dharma. It's that kind of things could have happened to anyone. Hindus has a lot of these things. Many are non-Buddhist. Lots of them has this kind of feelings, this, and anyone can enjoy that. You don't have to be a believer. You just can enjoy. You just, if you want to feel some lights or some sort of blissful, imagine yourself something. You're going to enjoy it. You don't know what it is, but you're going to enjoy it. But here in Buddhism, it's not okay. It's not okay to leave things like unknowingly, leave it like that. We need to specifically go through what is it, where it is going to end up being, because it is precious human life, and we don't want to waste our mind just hanging around like that. We need the precise path where it is going to lead you to, and how you're going to generate it, what is the proper way, precisely, systematically, consciously, we need to approach the Dharma. All right, so that's why this kind of preliminary practice of meditations are very, very important. Okay. Do we have any questions?
If anybody has questions, you could put them in the chat group, and I will pick them up and we'll direct them to Geshe.
I hope everyone is not sleeping. Okay, so far no question, right?
No, nothing at the moment, Geshe.
Okay. Okay, all right. So, so now, once you know this human, once you meditate on the human life, preciousness of human life, actually, this you need to the measurement. How do you say it? The measurement of having actualized. Okay. Anyway, this preliminary teachings, precious human life, meditation on the dead, and the karma, the causalities, the way how karma give rise to the cause and give rise to effects. This needs to be meditated on in a similar way, in the same manner. So precious, you need to, yeah. So anyway, so that's why precious human life also needs to meditate on that way. So then there is a practice like when we taught these Four Noble Truths, Buddha taught Four Noble Truths, and because of there's misconceptions, a lot of misconception. When we say human life is precious, we didn't say it is pure. All right, so that's you must keep in mind, because Four Noble Truths, truths of suffering, truths of cause and cessations, and then nirvana and paths. And truth of sufferings, it has again four aspects, right? Four aspects of a thought. Four aspects of our thought. Four aspects of the first Four Noble Truths were taught, because in order to in order to address the four fundamental misconceptions that we have. Four misconceptions. That is impermanence conceived as permanence. Impurities conceived as pure. The selfless has been seen as having self. And suffering. The suffering nature has been seen as happiness. So let's say we see delicious food, I like it, and that gives a pleasant feelings to your tongue, and your consciousness enjoy it, and that's happiness. But it is a temporarily kind of a fake happiness. So when I say fake happiness, it doesn't mean that it is illusory all things. That is illusory things. Don't bring up that illusory things, because it's in a different world. It's ultimate world. We are not talking about conventional world. Conventional problem needs to be solved with conventional wisdoms. And conventional problems can be solved through ultimate wisdom. That's in another conversation. So there's a way you do it in that particular in some particular framework, and some particular okay. Anyway, so basically two different ways of addressing the destructive thoughts. One through ultimate reality, one through wisdom generated from the conventional knowledge. So meditations on the impermanence, on the precious human life and birth and deaths are conventional knowledge that we are trying to tame our mind through conventional knowledge, which is very important because we live in a conventional world. Ultimately, you go to sleep, that's it. ultimate emptiness, empty nature. But emptiness, ultimate nature needs to be understood through the means that could be established emptiness that are conventional aspects, that are conventional phenomena, that are conventional conventional stuffs, conventional things, which will help you to get there. But now conventional problem trying to solve through conventional methods. So that's why we don't bring up this kind of conventional, we don't bring up this kind of ultimate things, because we're trying to be tough, solve things from conventional perspective. And of course, in practice, you can intertwine, you can use both to tame your mind, but there's a way to do a whole lot of things through convention. That kind of exceptional wisdom through the conventional is also needs to be practiced, developed. So that's why we need to practice. Sometimes practice in that particular way, sometimes in the other way. So that's why precious human life kind of impermanence or impurities are also a very effective, very kind of impacting practice to address or to uproot our kind of very long time mental kind of misconception that has been embedded, that has been rooted deep down in our mind, in order to uproot them, some of those conventional misconception. So these ideas, development of this meditation on them, the impermanence and the impurities are very important because we see ourselves precious. We see ourselves as a pure. So now, how do you reconcile impure but precious? So we need to see both of them. Otherwise, if you keep seeing ourselves precious, 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 my body is precious, my mind is precious, and my tummy is precious, things inside my tummy is precious. No. The reality is reality. Precious because we can do a whole lot of things using this body. But body itself is not pure, it's impurities. So Lamrim text and other Nagarjuna's text give the example of ship, a broken ship, not necessarily broken ship, but a ship. The idea is to get on the other side of the shore, of the sea, of the ocean. You know, in order to get there, you use the ship. Okay, so that's why it's precious. It's precious because of the function it has. It's not precious because the purity of it, the pureness. It's not because of out of that pure natures, but it's out of the functions that it does, the kind of service that it offers, that it renders. So that's why it's precious. The preciousness needs to be seen in a very different way, so that which means the preciousness seeing ourselves precious has been expanded, so once, okay. So that's why the practice of impurities and practice of preciousness needs to be seen together. So otherwise there is a great dangers of strengthening the misconceptions that are detrimental to the progress of our spiritual journey, spiritual development of these paths. So this is, I think, very important. One thing that I need to stress, I need to emphasize the kind of this, the kind of the convergence of these two ideas, and divergence of kind of not practicing it properly. So anyway, so do we still have questions, or we need to keep going on like that?
Yes, Geshe, there's a question from Neil. I sent it. It's in your chat section. If you have a look on your app, can you see it there?
No.
I can read it out to you. The first is two questions. Is it better to be born in a pure land or as a human? That's the first question. And then second question is, how do we ensure we are born human and come across the Dharma in our next life?
Say it again.
The first question is it better to be born in a pure land or as a human?
Okay.
And second then is, how do we ensure human rebirth and to come in contact with the Dharma in our next life?
Okay, sure. Okay. Good question. Yeah. So that's perfectly connects with my next kind of point that I'm going to make. So pure land versus human rebirth. Now this so if you are a real practitioner, many Bodhisattva, they prefer human rebirth. But at some point, Pure Land are somehow one of the great places to go if you don't have any realizations yet. So that's why some of our texts, some of our Tsongkhapa's prayers, and also some other traditions, prayers, as they say this. Lantang mazi chiwi teche na tsenda tsune lame pongwa tongwa yana gewe tongwa ki tabe shinda means if I wasn't able to actualize any kind of paths this life, may I be reborn in a pure land, in any kind of pure land, So that's that means that's one way of practicing, because it's alternative. It's a kind of alternative for us to be able to practice Dharma. But at the same time, many great master doesn't really like that kind of idea, because that is a part of the laziness excuse that you may bring up, because this life I can't do much, and next life go to Pure Land. I pray for that, and that's kind of part of lazy. But if you struggle, trying so hard, and if your life ends with not much kind of progress in Dharma, then it's reasonable to go to Pure Land. So, but in any case, it always safe to say prayers, wishing, generate kind of visions and prayers to be born in Pure Land every time. That's way as a daily practice, because you never know when the death is going to come, and when the death comes, don't take it as like a scary thing. Death means a transition. Death means a transition from this life to another life, and that life will keep going on. So it's not the end of your message, but it's continuations. It's a transit. It's going. So you're going to your transit. So in order to make that transition to a better place, so you need to say that prayer, because karma is powerful. In order to create that karma, our prayers, our virtuous act with prayers and dedication will shift the kind of the flow of energy, flow of karmas towards taking you towards going there, towards you going there. It will then shift the energy and push you. When transition happens, it will push you there. So that's why saying prayers and accumulating good karmas, dedicate for yourself and others, and it brings to be born in the Pure Land. Excuse me. So that's why Pure Land. We don't need to actually. Okay. Let me give you this. Next life, at the present, next life for you, where you want to born, if you were given options, you want to go Pure Land or human. So in that case, which one are you going to choose? So most of the people choose Pure Land, right? That's naturally, it's okay, there's no problem. But some Bodhisattva choose human, because there is a real struggle, hard work is going on. One human lifetimes, you can go to Buddha, you can become a Buddha, while Pure Land, it takes a little bit longer time. So that's the case. It depends what your position, kind of give options to you, give what your position serves you as. So it depends. So that's why you just according to your capacity and your level of practice you choose. So, but in general, it's better to expect both. You never know. You can pray for the human rebirth and also Pure Land for both. All right. So, but in any case, end of the day, you are still here in human. Precious has already been attained. And in order to make use of it, you are expecting something else. That is the laziness. In terms of Dharma practice, it's become laziness. doesn't mean that you are really lazy in terms of not working, not working hard for your life to live a life. But in Dharma, it's a distraction. You are not doing what needs to be done, but you are distracted by what you're kind of what do you say, indulging into something. You indulge into something and you see temporal problem as a big problem, and that's a distraction. So that's why just sticking to that kind of things are kind of laziness, because you don't want to think about bigger things. You have a bigger problems to be solved. In order to solve those bigger problems, please think beyond the life that are after 20 years. Think beyond life after 20 years, 30 years, 100 years. So that's why Dharma needs to be practiced in that context, seeing the broader picture and working for the happiness of that future. So that's why it depends. It's different. You don't have to choose one thing and give up the other thing. You just choose both. All right. So that's purely related to human life. You wish to have attain both, right? There's no contradiction or problem with that, because in terms of negative karma, we do a whole lot of those things. Okay. In negative karma, people steals, people kills, and sometimes they do both, steals, kills. So in the same way, positive karma, you can do a whole lot of all these things. So I hope that answers your questions. And then in order to ensure human rebirth, so that's where ensure human rebirths, to ensure human rebirths, or to ensure a kind of what do you call this, happy realm, to ensure rebirth, to ensure rebirth in kind of taking birth in higher realms. So we need to practice precepts. So precepts are designed to ensure you bring that kind of birth, bring the kind of bring kind of life in the happy realms. So it actually essentially blocks the entrance of these negative realms, these lower realms, because you see the karma, good or bad energies, destructive, good or bad energy comes from destructive and constructive thoughts. That destructive constructive thoughts needs to be created through taking precepts. The precept, taking precept by not killing, not stealing, not lying, not sexual misconduct, all other things, 6 or 10 or 30 or whatever the precept that you want to take, at least 4 to 5 precepts, not using these intoxicants. These 5, these 6, these 4, these are somehow best practice, not killing sentient beings. Maybe I might have to say some bad things, but not to the point that hurts, that kills the people. If you have that kind of promise, if precept is essentially keeping the promise in front of your Buddha, Dharma, or teacher, whoever, the Sangha, you respect, you take the vows from them as well, those who already have vows. So once you have that promise, the thing is that once you have that promise, you see, just having that promise without a proper initiation or giving some kind of, receiving some sort of lineage or things, just having that kind of promise, or not wishing to kill some unsentient beings. There's a lot of people that don't want, that they're not going to kill people. They don't want to kill people. They may hurt a little bit, and sometimes they don't want to lie anything. These are also kind of, these are also the flavors of the subtle practice that we had before coming to this life. So because of that kind of our nature, the human nature, we have that tendency from our very many lifetimes. We know in human beings, many of us since from birth, we don't want to kill anybody, we don't want to hurt anyone, we don't want to lie, we don't want to engage in this sexual things, sexual misconduct, and all those things. That's why the rules and regulations, the laws, all the things are all this, what do you call this, and all this legal, kind of systems were established based on this kind of nature we have. What should be doing, what shouldn't be doing. It comes at fore, having our basic fundamental nature as a basis. It doesn't come from outside in here, but it's a reflection. It's another manifestations of the nature, the basic nature, fundamental natures of our mind, our existence. So that's why we have been practiced that a lot from other lifetimes. That's why we become a human. That's why that kind of energy, practice of those precepts, energy has blocked the entrance to the negative, entrance to the lower realms, and opens up the doors to the happy realms. In this case, for us, we become a human being with compassion, with the will, with not willing to kill, steal. Steal is bad. Everyone talks about that. Now, you steal, you have punishment. You kill, you have punishment. In the same way, you steal, you kill, you get punishment according to the karma. Karma never misses anything. So you're killing, stealing, all this engaging into this going to propel you in hell or the lower realms. In order to block that, you have practice of not stealing, not killing. So, of course, you already have that vicious, not killing, not that kind of aspiration, not to kill anyone, not harm anyone, not want to, too much use of intoxicant, lie, all these things. But if you receive precept from Buddha, lineage coming from Buddha, then it multiplies that kind of benefits, and it become more. And also having those precepts as a basis, when you practice anything, any other practice become more it's become more kind of animated. It's become more effective. It's become kind of more productive and progressing, advancing in the paths better and faster. So that's why precepts are very important. This is the basic things in order for you to avert from being born in lower realms. That's why 5 precepts, another precept, needs to be practiced and reiterate or renew it every single day, if it is possible. But if not, taking it, while you're taking it, you just promise it, taking that, observing this precept for lifetimes. That kind of promise also, practice it lifetime. That kind of it paves a way. It actually sets a kind of foundations for the mind. It already set a foundation for the mind. That kind of promising, not killing anyone, no matter what, not going to hurt anyone to the point they take life, that will, they have to give a life. I'm never going to hurt sentient beings like that. Promising that kind of not killing already, lies a foundation, a valid, a ground, solid foundation for the Dharma to grow better. So if you don't have that, still you still, the promise from here to there, you already covered. Your light, the light of good energy has already been expanded to lifetimes, and it's been covered. But if you don't have that promise, then the practice of not killing is whenever it comes, whenever it generates, whenever you have sort of development of the thoughts, thought occurs, then it's practice. In random people, oh, are you going to kill? No, I'm not going to kill. I'm not going to lie. That thing is there. So that is something created, lights, generates good virtues right there and doesn't expand. If you're promising it for practicing it for lifelong, then it covers, it expanded that good energies. And even you're sleeping, while you're eating, you don't think about it, you make profit. You make profit there. Yeah. All right. Okay, so we don't have a question, right? So I hope it answers your question.
Yes, Geshe, Neil said that. So that's no more questions at the moment.
Cool. We don't have question, right?
No more questions.
Okay, so I think we now we we're going to end this session here. We're going to end it with some chanting and some meditations, and we're done today. And yeah, so let me talk a little bit about this, how you actually can practice some of those things that I have told. Yeah, so you remember the 7 point, seven limbs of practice, 7 limbs. Make sure that all of the practice are concluded, any practice are concluding these 7, prostration, generation, bodhicitta, and actual practice and dedications, and also confession. So I just want you to talk a little bit about this particular the problems that we are having now, challenges, this pandemic. I'm not going to say a whole lot of things, but the practice that we need to maintain in this particular time, like we talked about a human precious life. Of course, practice in the human precious life, starting from human precious life, impermanence, and then expand that kind of practice to other sentient beings. All right. So that's how all this preliminary practice, whether it's become Mahayana or not, it depends on the compassion. So if it is blended with the compassion, then it's become Mahayana. If it's not blended with, if it's not combined with the compassion, then it's not Mahayana practice. It's Theravada or Hinayana practice. I don't know Theravada, but maybe it's called Hinayana practice. So it depends. So in order to make it a Mahayana practice, we need to practice the compassion. So the compassion is not only is it good for it is not only is it making our practice a Mahayana, but it also very good for your overall health and cleansing of negative karmas. This pandemic is at some point due to the collective karmas of all of us. It's like this. You might have seen some Middle East where I've seen some of those terrible video clips where some women were tortured, stoned to death, with many men, like 100 men, 50 men. And also, it's, same thing happened in many other places. torturing people, stealing, So anyway, any negativity is involved in a lot of people. So we all the people in this world, in some other lifetimes, we happen to involve in killing sentient beings, torturing people, stealing that hurts in other sentient beings. We collectively did something. So this is now affecting the whole world. Is the consequences? Is the result of that karma? So that's why, in order to solve, in order to clear that karma, negative energies that we are mental continuums carrying, we need to cleanse it through the compassion. Karma, negative karma has been accumulated, and it needs to be cancelled out through some kind of a similar process. Hurting sentient beings, negative karma you get. Helping sentient beings, cancel out negative karma and generate good karma. So that's where practice of compassion, sharing your practice, sharing, let's say, compassion, let's say, precious human life practice, knowing the precious human life. And you be born as you're so lucky, and may all other sentient beings, may they be met with such kind of precious, such kind of precious opportunity that I am blessed with. So that kind of compassion, So and then impermanence, impurityness, see impurityness as a pure. That's because impermanence as a permanent. That's why we have a lot of problems. You see, the problems that the Dharma is so precious. You have an assumption. You assume you will see the taste of them, but still, we in our day-to-day life, we always tend to engage in some of those things that we coming and going around us, and it's so powerful that we drag into that easy. It's because we don't have that, we didn't practice that, we didn't apply those practice enough. That's why mind is not strong enough to pull it back from what has been dragging, So that's why, to pull it back from the dragging, powerful, life, the mundane life, it's power because we give power to them. So in order to retract, kind of our hands from there, we need to understand the faults and the suffering natures of the samsara, and another kind of precious, another kind of the responsibilities that falls on you responsibility falls on you to work for your future life and possible other sentient life of all the other sentient beings. That's responsibilities, seeing the suffering nature of samsara. It's just temporarily, and I will be going to many lifetimes. What should I be doing for them? And is it really worth wasting this precious life just to save, just to enjoy this life? So you just ask a lot of these kind of questions, and then gradually see the faults of the samsara, and faults of samsara, all the disadvantages of clinging on to those kind of small things, because all the society, all these are actually environment, society, whole world is pushing you to do that. So it's become very powerful. So just try to dismantle that, try to unlearn that kind of mentality, that Dharma helps you. So that you, in the morning, you get up and take shower or whatever, and do yoga or breathing, and then reflect, sit and think, and what the kind of precious body, where it comes from. Many lifetimes coming here and going. And mind, and you check on the mind, what the mind is thinking about myself. Okay, the practice, am I sharing it with other sentient beings or not? Making sure that mind at least at least think of other sentient, not specific, in general, is it making sure you think of others, because that, okay, it's going to be too much now. All right. So anyway, this compassion, I believe you know how to practice those. So always make sure that it is always combined, it is always conjoined with this kind of compassion practice, and then also have the remorse of having done those negative karmas, and jointly we have done this negative karmas by me and the group, in a group, jointly we have done this. So have remorse of it, and receiving blessings or deities, whatever you practice, and Vajrasattva practice, whatever, and cleanse your mind and body, and at the same time cleanse negative mind and body and the negative karmas of all sentient beings. So that kind of practice, compassion is practice, cleansing the negativities, and then dedication. So these are very important things that I just want to share with you during these times. And I think it's a very good opportunity for us to actually practice Dhamma. So you don't have to go out. You don't want to go out too much, because precious human life, we need to survive. We need to protect our precious human life, not because it's pure, it's a holy thing, but we can do a whole lot of things with this body, with this brain and heart. So we need to keep it. We need to keep this body healthy, so you will have a healthy mind. So not because I want to become famous, I want to be seen as a beautiful, handsome. It's just attachment to your skin. You are just not able to go beyond the skin. It's a nonsense. But go deeper beyond the skin and look at the mind, your mind, and the mind of others. So that's how you share love and care with that understanding, so that it will try to see the sentient beings beyond the skin through your wisdom, because essentially human beings is not body, but we need that support, that body, in order to do a greater things for myself, for other sentient beings. So you practice, this thing, reflection, and then try to generate compassion as much as possible. Or you can give some sort of examples of some sentient beings who are going through some problems, and wishing good things for those peoples, and assume all the sentient beings are exactly in the same situation and wishing the same happiness, and maybe some are enjoying some happiness right now, but these happiness are very fragile, and it's going to end up with suffering. May they never have that kind of suffering. May their happiness, whatever the enjoyment they are enjoying, whatever the achievements, whatever the kind of belongings they may enjoy, may they never end up. May they never end up, kind of in suffering eventually. So that kind of wishing good things to others, in generalize all the sentient beings in that way, are something that not very difficult to practice, but yet it's very, very, very helpful in cleansing negativities, negative karmas, and bringing good karmas. You see this, even if you are sick people with this kind of contracted diseases, that compassion practice is going to heal you actually. And with in relation with the deities, and everything is done. Everything practice has done in relation with the compassion. I mean, in conjunction, in conjoint or induced by that compassion, then it's reciting mantras. If you are not only just saying myself, but for all sentient beings, whoever contracted with this virus, in particular, but in general, all are suffering natures. So in order to dispel all the negativities and sufferings, you are reciting mantras with having sense of sharing these blessings, protection with all the sentient beings who are desperately in the need of help. These are very compassion going along with the practice of mantra, whatever you practice. These are somehow, very calm, not only calming your mind, but cleansing all the negativities. Itself can cleanse the negativities. At the same time, build up all these good karmas. And you see, in scientifically, those keep your mind calm, especially practice like compassion, can actually create good energies. That we are essentially, the mind and body are in the form of light. If you want to see our body in light form, it's light. If you want our body in the physical form, it's physical. So that's quantum physics says, when you goes to the subtle, when you see it as an atoms or as a small units, it's become small unit. When you see it from the light, it's become light. So that kind of light's energy, the mind has utilizing those lighted energy actually. So that's why when we want to say something, mind says pushing all those cellulars, all those kind of small subparticles in line and create some sound waves and make it into particular sounds. That mind has been working from a very subtle to this kind of gross and manifested into that sounds and all these other things. So in the same way, calm mind can actually reshape, redesign your mind. And that energy, redesign your mind, that will dismantle a whole lot of negative energies. And it is the whole lot of that whole lot of those negative energies create good energies. And thereby it will improve overall health. Because, these kind of things, healing things from virus are essentially essentially a fight, is a battle fight between your your body's immune systems, and the good part of your body and the bad part of your kind of part coming from outside of wherever. So that good things, good immune systems, and the other kind of helpful kind of our energies were then boosted or revitalized by that good energies. So there's many scientific research done on that as well. So how the calmness of your mind or practice like compassion can produce good hormone, immune systems in your body, and how that kind of then not only just immune system but good energy, how somehow they cannot explain, but kind of hold these the elements or this kind of negatives, how they were healed by some of those kind of positive thinking, how they affect, how there's even if you are on a medication, how the medicine can become helpful through the calm mind, especially with the compassion. The medicine become more effective. Whatever medicine become more effective, and there's more protection from prevention of all these good things will can happen through this compassion, because compassion creates good karmas. So obviously good karma can protect you from negative things. So that's how the compassion practice is very important. So I thought of doing some meditation here. So now I think it's almost too long. I think it's too long now. So I will end it here, and I hope you will do some meditations later. And now we do some dedication. So we don't have questions, right?
No, Geshe, no other questions.
Okay, we do some dedication. So if you have, okay, anyway. So let's do dedication, and before we do the dedication, we chant a little bit mantras, maybe Tara Buddhist here for yourself, for your protection, and for the protection of all the sentient beings who okay. Kawali do tarema to dara inji do to the nawana ledo dremila chance tari to the retrison tari to the retrison dari 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 to the retrison Om Dari Dari Som 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 Om Dari Dari Som 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 Dari Om Dari Dari Som 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 Dari Om Dari Dari Som 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 Dari Dari Om Dari Dari Som Dari Dari Som Dari Dari Som Dari Dari Som Om Dari Dari Som 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 Om Dari Dari Som Dari Dari Som Dari Dari Som Dari Dari Som Dari Om Dari 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 So Om Dari Dari Som Dari Om Dari 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 So Ha Om Dari 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 So Ha Om Dari 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 So Ha Om Dari 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 So Om Dari 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 So Ha Om Dari 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 So Ha Om Tare tu re so ha Om Tare tu re so Om Tare tu re so ha Om Tare tu re so ha Om Tare tu re so ha Om Tare tu re so Om Dare tu re so ha Om Dare tu re so ha Om Dare tu re so ha Om Dare tu re so Om Dare tu re so ha 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 Tena je lama to je ma ju de tu ma tu ma lu ta la me ba ta ge de ge shen la ta wa ye du ku de ta de ba chin je la cha jo san jo re bo ji ma je ba da je wa nya ba me ba ya ko ne ku du pe wa re shu pa ma sin je tam je de ta de je ni ro tam je ta to to 장조 선바 강나수 조바 데다 문원조 조루지 바데라메 나브라다바 기지 자야 로다미 지제 진제 레바 라미 지라 센란 조바르슈 Okay, that's it. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in, and please stay safe.
Thank you, Geshe. Thank you. Thank you, Geshe.
Yeah.
Thank you, Geshe.